Welcome to the party, pal. Your friendly neighborhood master chaos back with you once again. I hope you're well. I hope this video finds you well. Sending lots of love your way. This is a very awful and crazy world sometimes, and it's nice to know that you and I can find some peace together, even for a little while as we chat movies. Today, it is episode 7 of my deep dive into the All the Haunts Be Ours box set. 7. We are literally in the middle of this deep dive. We're not done yet. We're in 7 of 12. 7 of 12. We're literally in the second half of all of this. Just in the middle. Can you believe that? I feel like I've been talking about this forever. We've only been doing it for a month, technically. We're going into the second month of coverage on this. But I promised you an in-depth deep dive into every disc, every feature. And I'm going to bring it to ya today. Episode 7, we are talking Disc 7, still in the land down under, still worried about killer kangaroo, which apparently is a problem over there. Kangaroos are not to be fucked with. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, Australia makes some weird movies.
Back from the dead.
Disc 7 brings us 2 films from Australia, CELIA and Allison'S Birthday. Allison'S Birthday was the one that most people were excited about initially during the first wave of announcements, and it even inspired jewelry from the film as part of the big Witches bundle thing. If you got that, you got the Allison'S Birthday necklace, which features prominently in the film. We'll start with CELIA because this kicks off the disc, and this is the one film. Well, yeah, I would say probably the one film in this box set that I honestly feel does not belong. Let me explain. To me, CELIA is neither folk horror nor horror, to be honest. So make no mistake, what you have here is a family drama with horror hints that are merely there to tease and frustrate an audience expecting a certain movie. But honestly, that's not our fault. The movie is sold as a horror movie, and that is unfortunate. So go in not expecting a horror movie, and I think you'll like this film for what it is. What is the movie, though? Let's talk about the plot. CELIA is a good movie, one that can stand on its own without having to trick the audience into thinking something else. This is the story of a little girl who makes friends with her new next-door neighbors, who happen to be communists, and the first half of the movie is all about communism in Australia. The second half, however, is all about her insatiable love of rabbits and how the government is cracking down on rabbits because of her overpopulation and overbreeding and her having to deal with all of that. Now you're right, none of that sounds like a scary movie. That's what I've been saying. It's not a scary movie. Sure, there's scary elements, there's monsters, there's kind of creepy imagery and things like that, but it's all in Celia's imagination. None of it is real. So after the 10th time a creepy monster hand reached out from a window to grab her, I realized, oh, this isn't a scary movie. This movie's trying to fuck with me because this is not a scary movie whatsoever. It is just a waste of time because honestly, to me, it gets in the way of the story, it gets in the way of the character development, and it almost doesn't really fit here. Now, there are elements that are folk horror elements in the movie. There's moments where the kids decide to to do a voodoo ritual, whatever, a kids voodoo ritual type of thing with like voodoo dolls and chanting to a fire and it all becomes very folk horror for a minute. You're like, oh shit, where's this going? Are these kids gonna do some kind of like kid-powered Lovecraftian, witch spell? And at one point, Celia even like chants for her father's death. But all of it adds up to naught. Nothing happens with that. Nothing is ever paid off of that. It's just a thing that happens, and then literally the next scene, completely abandoned. So it's almost like they're trying to have their folk horror cake and eat it too, but it has nothing, and I mean nothing, to do with anything folk horror, except for the fact that she reads a fairy tale, she has these weird flashbacky, weird dream visions of monsters, and the kids chant around a fire, and it's all just for nothing. Just to get her hopes up. You're like, oh shit, this is going to take an interesting direction. And then it just goes back to it's regular story about commonplace, everyday historical situations happening in Australia. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel those weird detours that try to trick us into thinking we're getting something else hurt the movie, in my opinion. It happens way too often when the movie presents an interesting direction in the plot, then completely ignores it in the next scene. It just feels too random to feel organic. The main problem with the movie is that it's nearly 2 hours and doesn't have enough plot to fill it. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed by this movie, especially people coming for a folk horror film. But if you look under the surface, I think it's a very interesting movie on its own. Honestly, not one I will ever rewatch, but one that I enjoyed in retrospect, and I think it is worth your time. Communism in Australia and rabbit overbreeding don't sound like the most interesting topics for a film, and you'd be right in thinking so, but CELIA is just too well made to be ignored, and that's honestly the best I could say about it. CELIA is going to get 2 stars from your old pal Master Chaos. I enjoyed the movie, I think, more in retrospect. Watching it, I was very, very confused. It did leave me scratching my head. I was kind of expecting something very different, and that's certainly on me in terms of my interpretation or my expectations. The film did leave a little bit to be desired. Even though I am giving it 2 stars, I do recommend the film. I think it is a worthy watch. I mean, honestly, if this were a Criterion release, honestly, I'll tell you right now, 100%. I told you I would never lie to you, never, ever, ever lie to you, and I've never, ever paid for a review, just so you know as well. If this were a Criterion release, I probably would have given it 4 stars. I think it is a little long. I think the story meanders a little too much. I think that the script needed to be tightened up. But I think it's a pretty damn solid movie, 4-star movie. But I'm grading on a curve here on a folk horror box set. So I was expecting a folk horror movie, and I didn't get it. So as far as folk horror, it's a 2-star movie for me. CELIA gets a gaggle of special features, including a 23-minute archival documentary on the rabbit problem in Australia, which I will warn you about, has a ton of rabbits being slaughtered en masse. Then you get a nearly 40-minute interview with CELIA's director, Ann Turner, and it's recorded over Zoom, but the good news is that it's fairly clean looking, and you don't have to worry about Zoom compression or anything like that. Lastly, you get a 17-minute interview with the film's editor, Ken Swallows, who charts his whole career, and he spends a great deal of time discussing Australian television, which I found particularly interesting. Hey, get your dancing shoes on, bitch. We've been invited to Allison'S birthday. It's gonna be great. There'll be worshiping, there'll be chanting, there'll be people in robes. It's gonna be fantastic. What's that? Satanic? No. What? Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, absolutely. Allison'S birthday runs 1 hour and 38 minutes and stars Mad Max's wife. I'm sure I could have tracked down her name and told you what her real name is, but I'm just going to call her Allison or Mad Max's wife, so bear with me, please. In the creepy and perfect mood-setting opening sequence, 16-year-old Allison is warned to not return home for her 19th birthday, or some real bad shit's going to go down. We don't know what it is, but some bad shit is promised to go down. Fast forward to Allison being 18 years old and living somewhere else when she gets invited back home by her aunt and uncle for her 19th birthday celebration. Wouldn't you know it? She knows it's bad news. She doesn't want to go home, but she feels bad for her aunt and uncle who she worries about, and she agrees to go back home. This can't possibly go right, right? Nope, it doesn't go right, but in a way, it does go right for us, because we get a pretty satisfying movie. Here you get shades of a whole bunch of other films, Rosemary's Baby, a little bit of Skeleton Key, a little bit of Hereditary, so you kind of know the movie you're getting, and even though there's no real big surprises in terms of how shit's gonna go down, you're kind of enjoying it because it feels comfortable and cozy and familiar. While it is equal parts Rosemary's Baby and Hereditary, this Satanic Shocker is quite engaging and the complete opposite of CELIA, because this is folk horror through and through, and it's the good kind too. Poor Allison is destined for devilish deeds, and we're along for the ride in this tight and well-constructed script that never slacks in intensity and allows the plot to progress organically without the normal contrivances you might find in a movie like this, which to me is a plus. Luckily, Allison is not alone. She has her boyfriend Pete by her side, and while she's out of commission, he leads the charge to try to find out what is going on. But that charge might just lead him all the way to the cemetery. Remember when I said I was grading on a curve based on it being a folk horror box set? Well, Allison's Birthday gets 5 stars. I loved it. It is a movie that we've seen 100 times before, or a movie that's been cribbed from or cribs from, but it's still a satisfying movie. It delivers what it needs to deliver. It's creepy. The finale is suitably intense, and it delivers shock upon shock that it honestly continued to the last fucking moment, the last second, when you realize what's just happened. You're, oh man, it's a total mind fuck, and one that is earned. Not a bullshit pull the rug out from under you move, but a very satisfying twist. The whole movie is very satisfying, and I loved it. Special features include a 12-minute portion of extended interviews from the Not Quite Hollywood documentary with producer David Haney and 2 of the cast members from the film. Lastly, my favorite thing on here is The Devil Down Under, a satanic panic in Australia. It runs about 17 minutes, and it's a documentary by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas discussing Satanism in pop culture down under, and it is quite fascinating and definitely worth your time. There you go, Disc 7, Part 7, kind of a mixed bag. 2 really good movies, but for very different reasons. Even though my star ratings are very different for both movies, I do recommend both movies. I think they are worth your time. Temper your folk horror expectations, I should say, for Celia. But Allison's Birthday is full-bore folk horror fun. I think you'll dig it quite a bit. Celia, go in expecting a family drama, and you'll be fine. You'll have a wonderful time. Go in expecting a Criterion release type of movie, and I think you'll dig it. Overall, I would say it's a good disc, but just know what you're getting yourself into. Okay, let's call it a day. That is Disc 7. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been your friendly neighborhood Master Chaos. I wish you well. I love our moments together. I love sharing these little bits of quiet with you, discussing movies. And here I am by myself, looking into a camera, filming this, but it's nice to know that you are wherever you are in the world. And just know that I'm wishing you lots of love. I'm wishing you hope and peace and all the best. So sense that through the TV. I'm sending that to you right now. I wish you the best. I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to take care of others around you. We can each be kinder to each other. Maybe, just maybe, we can fix the world a bit. Okay, my friend, let's call it a day. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, because that means you and I get to hang out again, and I would love for that to happen. Cap'n, as for now, signing off.